My name is Melissa Frey, author, editor, and lover of stories. Also, a grammar nerd, 100%. Today, in my second AuthorTuber video, I will be talking about dialogue. Yep, like talking, but in your book. So I've identified a few ways to help you improve your dialogue, make it more readable, and help engage your reader. So I'll be talking about that. Also, I'll describe what dialogue tags are and why I hate them. Well, I don't really hate them, but sometimes I do. So I'll explain that later. So today we're going to talk about 3 different things having to do with dialogue. That's right, just 3, but should hopefully help you understand a little bit more about what things to look for with dialogue, how to write it a little bit better, and to improve your writing. So I guess we'll start with number 1. And number 1, the first tip for dialogue is to know your characters. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the first rule for anything, right? But especially pertaining to dialogue, you need to know how your character speaks. Is that too basic? Okay, we'll go with it. It's totally fine. But anyway, you need to know your characters in and out. You're not going to necessarily put all of that detail in your book. Your reader might not care if they really like lasagna or not. But you do want to know them as the author inside and out so you can see how their personality comes out in their voice, which is how their dialogue, their dialogue. For example, if your character spent a lot of time in the South, or maybe they grew up there in the US, they'll probably use the word y'all, right? I mean, I'm not from the South, but I still occasionally use it, but just because I'm crazy that way and I have a lot of friends from the South. But if your character spent a lot of time in the South, they might have y'all in there. If maybe your character is from Britain, they might have a British accent. A little bit harder to write, but there are certain words that European English uses that American English does not. So there's certain ways to show this other than just telling them, because you don't want to tell them that. And I'll probably say this every video. You want to show your reader what's happening instead of telling them. Yes, again, showing is greater than telling. So instead of telling them that they lived in the South, which might be some helpful backstory, you can show them by saying things like y'all and maybe fixin'. That's a thing too, right? Okay, so anyway, bottom line, know your characters. That's really the only way you're going to write some really great dialogue that's true to who they are. All right, are we ready for number 2? Okay, well, even if we're not, we're going to do it. Number 2 is write believable dialogue. Yes, believable. Like something someone would actually say in like this century. I mean, unless you're writing historical fiction. Yes, I know. Historical fiction, you want to make sure it's believable for that era. So it still fits. And it needs to be readable. So if you are getting stuck and you're not sure if it's readable, the best tip that I've heard for this is to read it out loud. And you don't necessarily need to read every single word out loud. Maybe you just read the dialogue. So everything in between the quotation marks, you read that through and it'll tell you if it makes sense to your ear. As I mean, we're trying to make it believable and less confusing for the reader to read our books, right? Because if it's confusing, they're probably not going to keep reading. So that's the number 1 goal. Make it believable. And for the last one, number 3, dialogue tags. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, dialogue tags. I did mention that I hate them once or twice, and I don't really. Let me clarify. I read a book once where everything was he said and she said. It was so obnoxious. I could not get past it. Once I noticed it, it was so distracting that I had a really hard time finishing the book, although I did, because at that time I would read books even if I didn't like them. I don't do that anymore because I just have, nobody has time for that. But I will never read another book from that author again. Sorry, but I just won't, because I could not stand that every single quotation was tagged with he said. Like, no, we don't need this. This is unnecessary. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about right now, is why dialogue tags are largely, usually unnecessary. Okay, let's break this down a little bit. So, the dialogue tag. If you are describing someone asking a question, well, how do you know who asked the question? There's a couple of ways. Obviously the dialogue tag is one of the ways. My preferred way, however, is another way that you can show instead of tell the reader what's going on. Okay, so here's kind of the bonus thing, or what I call them. I call them action phrases. Action phrases, yes. I don't know, I could have made that up. I'm not an English major, I don't know. Maybe someone out there has a better term for this, probably. But I call them action phrases. Basically, they're a phrase that describes the action being taken. It just depends on your point of view, which is another kind of side topic under dialogue tags we're going to talk about briefly, so this doesn't get to be really long. Point of view is basically who you are writing the story from. So if you think about a book written first person, everything is I did this and we did this, I noticed this, all of that. That's very, you can understand that, that's very basic. But when you're writing in third person, things can get a little more tricky. So in my book, The Secret of the Codex, which shameless plug is available on Amazon. I'll leave the links down below. Yeah, you know all that. Okay. So in my book, The Secret of the Codex, I have two main characters, Kayla and Grady. And they obviously, because they're the main characters and, you know, like love interest, have a lot of conversations in the book. So what I chose to do with my point of view is each section is a different point of view. I like big casts and I like to write from all different points of view. Some people say it's bad. I think it's just fun. So I do it. You know, if you can have fun with the writing, why are you doing it, right? Okay. So I will write a scene from Kayla's point of view, and I will have everything that I write come to the reader as filtered through Kayla's head or her eyes or her mind or whatever it is. I'll write a conversation where she's talking with Grady, and Kayla will notice what Grady is doing. Perhaps he crosses his arms, or he rolls his eyes, or he looks off to the side, or he shifts his weight. I mean, there's so many different things you can do, but as you can see, all of those things are very engaging for the reader. What it does is it takes the reader to a place when they felt something like that, and they felt a similar emotion, or they felt those feelings, or they've shifted their weight. They know what that means, but you didn't tell them what it means because they're smart, and you need to treat them like they're smart. But the bonus thing is when they are trying to make that connection in their head, they say, oh yeah, I've shifted my weight before. And then their mind immediately says, well, I was nervous, or maybe unsure, or whatever the case may be. But it actually, that thing in their brain helps them engage with your book. And that keeps them reading, right? That's what we want. Yay! With a different point of view, you can tell the story happening from that person's perspective. So Kayla can describe what Grady is doing. She can also describe what she is feeling. Now, on the flip side, if I'm telling the story from Kayla's point of view, she cannot tell me what Grady is feeling, right? Makes sense. So you want to make sure that your point of view is consistent so that you can write those action phrases as if they were coming from that person's perspective. Okay, did that make any sense at all? I could talk about this all day, and I probably am, and fortunately you're getting the edited version. Suffice it to say, dialogue tags can be used in certain situations, and they are necessary, but Most of the time they're not. So how do you use action phrases to take the place of dialogue tags? So you're not constantly using a he said, she said, he asked, she asked. Well, the best way to do that is just to say something like, for example, and this is not from my book, this is off the top of my head. Hey Kayla, do you want to go for a walk? And instead of saying Grady asked, which I know he asked, I have a question mark at the end of the quotation, what I can say is Grady smiled at her. I mean, that's something that everybody knows what it means. Like he's happy, or he's excited, or he's kind of trying to flirt with her, who knows? But that's kind of the fun of it, because every reader gets to make their own assumptions and they get to make their own beliefs and what's going through Grady's head. Now I could describe that Kayla felt butterflies in her stomach at the sight of his smile. Now what does that mean? Well, up for interpretation again, because that's what we want, but ultimately it's, you know, she's feeling something. She kind of is liking him or whatever. She likes his smile, something like that. So there's a lot to be done. But you can see how that is something that's open to interpretation, that the reader can really engage with, and it helps anchor the story. It helps anchor the dialogue in the story. Oh, and here's a bonus tip that I just thought of. Bonus just for you. When you're writing dialogue, there are certain ways to write it, and this kind of goes a little bit to pacing, which I'll probably talk about at some point in the future. But when you're writing dialogue, there is a way to take the reader through it so it's quick or slow. Basically, you can slow it down, you can speed it up. The easiest way to slow something down is to add a lot of words. Now, you don't want them to be words that nobody needs, that this bogs down the story. They don't need to be adverbs, because generally those aren't a good idea. You can add more of the feeling. You can really take your time. You can kind of toy with the words, add in some nice prose that fits with your story. You can really slow that down. However, if you want to increase the tension and increase the drama, you can do that by just speeding things up. And usually it's by eliminating tags and even action phrases altogether. One of the ways I did this in my book, The Secret of the Codex, was my two secondary characters. Well, they're kind of my two other main characters. Anyway, Mandy and Justin, they have this part where they are really, there's something big that happens to them. And they're kind of on this whole, like, they really understand each other and they're really getting it. They're like finishing each other's sentences and all of that. So obviously I wrote that very rapid fire. I wrote that very, like, this line, and then talked about Justin a little bit maybe, and then Mandy went in, Justin, Mandy, and they, like, you know, you do the dashes to kind of cut each other off because they're finishing each other's sentences, and the ellipses to kind of show that. And it was really fun. It helped move them through the story and through that conversation, and help the reader really feel how dramatic and quick it was. And then it abruptly stopped, and it's just, at that, they stilled. And so Kayla and Grady were there for that, and they actually, like, it kind of put you in the shoes of Kayla and Grady, like, okay, what just happened? Let's just slow down. Why did they stop talking? What is happening? And it was like this big, you know, reveal moment and all of this stuff. So long story short, because I said I was going to keep this short, you can create drama just through the way you put in your dialogue. Okay, so that's really a lot of what I know about dialogue. Probably most of what I know about dialogue. I probably know a little bit more, but those are the things that came to mind, and I think there'll be things that are helpful to you. Hopefully they are. If they were, and you feel like you learned something, or you feel like you found something that you could actually take back to your own writing and use, please let me know in the comments below. Please leave a comment, let me know. I really want to know if these videos are helpful to you guys, if there's anything else that I'm missing that I can fill in, if there's something that you thought of about dialogue that I'm not aware of, or maybe forgot to add in, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. Please, of course, like, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe with that big red button down at the bottom. You can ring that bell next to it to get notifications of when I post new videos, which should be every Friday. And I just want to connect with you guys and find out what you think. So anyway, that was the presentation on dialogue. Presentation, like it's all official. But hopefully you learned a little bit of something. So until next Friday, I am Melissa Frey, author, editor, and lover of stories, and yeah, you know, grammar, right? Okay.